Hey, what's up, everybody? Another vlog of Get Paid for Your Pad. Well, as you can see, I am ready to go join the Halloween party. So happy Halloween, everybody. But before I go out, of course, I'm going to do my daily video. Now, yesterday I received a lot of response after publishing my video about my investment in Colombia. And a number of people suggested a topic for today, which is really awesome because that means that I don't have to think about the topic. And it also means that at least one person is going to be happy about this video. So one person suggested the topic of Airbnb investing in Taiwan. She said, well, since you're in Taiwan, why don't you talk about, is Taiwan a good place to invest in Airbnbs? And so that's what I'm going to talk about right now. Well, there's four things that I look at in determining whether a location is good for Airbnb investment or not. The first thing is I ask myself if I would like to spend time in that country. Because my idea is to buy a bunch of properties around the world and actually use those properties. Spend a couple of months at my own property. Now, even if you're not planning to do that, I think it's still a good idea to buy something in a country where you would enjoy being, because it's always good to have a plan B. And if for some reason you buy a property and you're not allowed to do short-term renting anymore, or maybe not even long-term renting, then at least if you like the country, you can go there and hang out yourself. So that's the first criteria. The second one is, what's the deal with the Airbnb regulation? Of course, I prefer a place where Airbnb is legal. And if it's not legal, then there has to be some sort of way to get around the regulations. For example, getting a permit, or in countries where there's just no enforcement at all, and it's unlikely that there ever will be any enforcement. But preferably, I would like to operate legally. The third criterion is, all right, I forgot. Let me just look it up real quick. Oh yeah, of course, profitability. I mean, want to make a little money, right? So if it's not going to be very profitable, then I'm also not really interested. And when I say profitability, I really think about return on investment. So how much money do I put in? How much money I'm going to make after expenses on a yearly basis? And then I divide that by the total amount that I have invested. And that's the ROI. Well, right here in Taiwan, ROI does not look very good. Real estate prices are really, really, really high. I don't know why, but if you look at some numbers, I came up with some numbers. On this sheet, you can see the property prices comparison between Chicago and Taipei. And what you want to be looking at here is, in particular, the price to income ratio. That's just over 3 for Chicago. That means that for about 3 times the average yearly income, you can buy a property, whereas in Taipei, that is 19. So there's a big difference. The other thing that you want to look at is the price to rent ratio. And so in Taipei, it's absurdly high. And what does that mean? That means that the amount of money that you pay for a property and the amount of money that you can make by renting it out, those two are completely out of whack. Just to give you an example, this apartment where I'm staying right now, it rents for under $2,000 a month. But if you were to try and buy it, you would be paying over $1 million most likely. So, like if you think about the ROI, that's let's say 24,000. Let's just round it down to 20k. 20k per year on an investment of 1 million. That's only 2%. And the numbers that you see in this table kind of confirm that. If you look at the gross rental yield, city center, Chicago, we're looking at 12%, which actually seems a little bit high, but fair enough. But in Taipei, they estimate it's only 1.3. So that might be a little bit low, but who knows? It could actually be realistic. Now, if you look at some of the other numbers here, you can see that a one-bedroom apartment in the city center of Taipei would cost you about $500 a month. And I think that's, from what I've seen, I think that's realistic. And these are long-term rates, right? In Chicago, you'd be paying about $1,800, and I lived in Chicago, and I would say that's also quite accurate. Now, but look at the apartment prices. Now, in Chicago, you'd be paying about $3,200 per square meter to buy an apartment, whereas in Taipei, it's $10,000, which is like completely ridiculous, right? So the third factor, profitability, does not seem to be very good here. I mean, if you rent out on Airbnb, you can expect to make a little bit more, but still, 1.5% times 2 is still only 3%. Plus, you're not legally operating, right? Airbnb is not legal in Taiwan, so you're making a very small return. It's not legal, and so it's a pretty clear sign for me to stay out. The last factor that I would also look at is a risk factor. How much risk are you taking? What's the plan B? What could happen in the future? What can happen to regulations? Well, in Taiwan, I think the biggest risk factor is probably the political situation. The head of state here in Taiwan is not particularly popular in China. They've seen a big decline in Chinese visitors to Taiwan. And of course, there's always the threat in the air that China is always looking to reunite Taiwan with the mainland. And I don't know how realistic that is. It's almost impossible to estimate, but it's certainly a risk, right? I mean, if that plays up, then that could have severe consequences for the situation here in Taiwan, to the point where you might ask yourself if you would even want to be here. So that's, in a nutshell, my quick analysis of the short-term rental investment opportunities in Taiwan. If you do want to do something here, I would say you definitely want to be a local, and you probably want to rent a property and then rent it out. But that comes with all sorts of challenges. You have to find a landlord that agrees with that. You're still operating illegally. So, in the end of the day, I think there's much better locations around the world. And by the way, this situation is not just unique to Taiwan. There's quite a lot of countries in Asia where real estate prices seem to be very, very high compared to the rent that you can charge. Definitely places like Hong Kong and a lot of the big cities in China, it's the same thing. I think it might have to do with the fact that people over here just like to invest in real estate, and they're not so concerned about how much return they're making. I think they're more concerned about whether they're gonna get their money back. And I think people have to believe that real estate is something that always goes up in the long term. People like to save money, and people might also be a little bit distrustworthy. Is that a word? Distrustworthy? Let's say they might be a little bit skeptical in alternative investments, right? Where else are you going to go with your money if the interest rates are really low, like they are right now? I don't know if people do a lot of hedge fund investing, or obviously there's a stock market, but I think a lot of people kind of like the idea of just having something that's real, that's tangible, that you can touch, you can use it, you can live there, you can rent it out. I think that people over here just have a preference for that, and so they're not so much concerned with the return on investment. All right, well, that's it for today. I am going to the Halloween party, and tomorrow I will publish a video in which I share some of the festivities that will be going on here tonight. So I hope to see you then, and enjoy the party.